when I talk about long-term goals, well, for instance, I've got a timer on it's an app that I have on my phone. I can't even think what the app name is. Basically, it's a countdown. So, it's given me, okay, I'm going to live until I'm 100 years old. So it's counting down. I look at it every single day. I've only got this amount of days left, this amount of minutes left or whatever. So I try to make them count. But at the same time, I've got a goal that I want to live to 100.
Rise and shine.
Don't be afraid to failure. How far can you fall? You get to where you're trying to get to by staying focused.
Those difficult moments are what build your character.
Take a look at this physique. I'm in phenomenal shape, in body and mind.
This podcast is brought to you by Swole, the strongest fitness watch. Get yours today at swoleclock.com.
Your ego is killing your success. Welcome to the Swole Podcast, where Swole stands for Strength Will Overcome Limitations Every Time. Here we dig deep into the minds of amazing individuals to share stories of strength and how they use that strength to overcome obstacles and go beyond their limitations. When we think about everything that makes us great, successful, superior, or significant, what common things come to mind? Does it seem that we must possess a slight level of insanity to be so tenacious with our goals, or does this simply just come with the territory? Our guest today takes this seriousness of his goals to a whole other level. In fact, he has earned the nickname the Omnipresent Entrepreneur by me, yours truly, for his ability to step outside of himself and the entire picture and look at his life the way God looks at his plan for us. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is all about the man, the athlete, the life of Kris Gethin, owner and CEO of Caged Muscle Nutrition, author, fitness model, and mild-mannered genius of his time. This is an episode that you need to hear. Please remember to subscribe to the Swole Podcast as we have many more inspirational stories coming your way. Kris tells us about his journey getting out of Wales and into multiple seas by way of a cruise line. Let's listen.
Well, number one, I wanted to get out of Wales because I was partying a lot there. Like, I raced motocross throughout a lot of my time there. Mm-hmm. And when I couldn't, the only way that I could get sponsorship was riding enduros. Wasn't my sort of thing. And when I kind of retired from racing motocross, now I need to get an adrenaline fix.
Yeah.
I hadn't figured out where else to get that other than partying. So I ended up partying a little bit more than I should have, but it wasn't making me happy. If anything, now, because I don't have that physical outlet, I'm becoming unfit. I'm getting overweight. My asthma that I suffered with was getting worse. Mm-hmm. I was depressed. And it wasn't until I actually started rehabbing my back through weight training, because I had back problems from motocross. Mm-hmm. And I started to get alleviated from the pain, and I took interest in it. And I decided to go to college for several years, and I did very well in college studying international health and sports therapy. Mm-hmm. And I basically flunked at everything at school. I hated school. I was easily distracted. I didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. So actually do something that I enjoyed and see that I could actually excel in it, and I would listen to the teachers, gave me a lot of opportunities that had previously been disguised as impossibilities.
Really?
So with those qualifications, I decided, okay, now this is an internationally recognized qualification. Mm-hmm. This is my ticket to get away from this partying lifestyle and normality. Mm-hmm. So I went and applied to work on cruise liners to take me away from that. Mm-hmm. And which I got accepted on a beautiful 5-star luxury celebrity cruise liner leaving out of Fort Lauderdale. And in the Caribbean, Mexico, the East Coast there, and after about 8 months from that, I met a girl from Australia, and we decided, okay, let's up and leave and start, pursuing our careers back in Sydney, Australia. I'm from Wales, where it's raining all the time. Why wouldn't I go there? So I was personal training there for a couple of years, and then ended up investing that money into a gym facility. And it was a lot of struggle. I remember part of my cardio was multitasking of, trying to post and mail out like 100 leaflets every single day, to continue to try to get new clientele, taking new routes, new streets. And, whenever I did any personal training out on the sidewalks in a park near the beach, I'd have like a sandwich board there with leaflets that people could pick up as well. And, so then I sorted out a deal with local leisure centers and gyms where I would pay rent and train clients in there, or I'd train them outside whenever those opportunities arose, or I'd train people within their homes. And I was doing this pretty much 7 days a week.
Yeah, just that's hilarious, because that's usually how it goes when you go from the corporate world of personal training, and then you kind of delve in there, and then you're usually handed the opportunity, whether you were looking for it or not, for a client to say, hey, man, why don't you just like train me outside and you get to keep all the money? And then like a light bulb goes off and you're like, oh yeah, it's a good idea. And usually that leads to down the road of entrepreneurship. And I think this is one of the few trades where entrepreneurship is vital for survival. Unless you're just so good at selling personal training, and these corporate gyms who are obviously making a lot of money off you can just keep feeding you clients. It's either it's fight or flight at that point. Because that's how I got started. And I owned a personal training business in San Antonio for a couple of years, and I was doing the same thing. I was working for corporate, and I started training people on the side. And then I thought, why am I giving this gym 60-70% of all my money when I'm not even using their facility? And it becomes, a necessity, because then, the numbers start making sense, and you're like, okay, well, I need to do this. But why a gym business? Is it just given your education? You just thought this was just the next best thing?
Yeah, I guess I thought that I would start delegating, because my schedule was full by this point. So I figured I would start delegating out to other trainers. And, I purchased, it was mainly like a personal training studio plus a Muay Thai studio. I had an interest in kickboxing. So I did have instructors that would teach some of the classes, but I continued to do the majority of the personal training myself, because I felt that I could only get the results that I needed. I didn't do the irregular personal training. Here you go, sign up for 30 sessions. I needed to give people a sense of urgency. So I'd only allow them to sign up for 6, 12, or 18-week transformation programs. And I found that only I was able to be intimidating enough, I guess, to get the results out of each one of my clients. And my trainers couldn't with the same impact. I went into the gym business with those best intentions, but I just ended up working more hours. I started at 5 o'clock in the morning and taking my last client at 9 o'clock at night, and I'd give myself half a day off on Sunday.
Yeah, that's it's so funny to hear you say that, because it's so true. And I was training from 4 in the morning till about 8, 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, and then 6 hours on Saturday. And it's not a very family friendly business, or it's, as far as the owner is concerned. And ironically, one of my business mentors from up north, I met him in Vegas, and he bought a gym in West Palm Beach, Florida, during a midlife crisis. And he dumped over $500,000 into it and thought, okay, I'm just, I'm good at running businesses, so I'm just going to run this business and make this a success. And I think he got a really rude awakening when he realized that it's not, the gym business is not like any other business, and he would tell me all the time, you don't start a gym to make money, because that's probably the last thing that you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of satisfaction from clients. You're going to get a lot of satisfaction from trainers. You're going to get a lot of bills. And eventually, later on down the line, if you've survived a couple of years, maybe you'll start making money. But he always told me, it's like, don't ever start a gym business with the hopes that you're going to make money, because that's just never going to happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. Because I was making quite good money doing my mobile training, I figured that I'd make even more within the gym business, but as you rightly said, the overheads destroyed any possibility of that.
It really does, and it's a shame too, because I know that there are probably a lot of people who have fantastic ideas for gyms, or who have a very good work ethic that just, you know, they get so enthusiastic, and then they hear stories of guys who have been there, who have done that, you know, and it makes you wonder, like, how gyms like, for example, when I was in Arizona, there was a gym called Thorbeck's. Thorbeck's was $3 a day, and it had a pretty tight size fitness facility, and they've been around for, I think, 30 years. Doug's Gym out here in Dallas, Texas, it's been around for over 50 years, I think 50 or 60 years, something like that. And you wonder, like, how did these gyms survive for so long? You know, and Doug's didn't even have a working bathroom until 15 years ago.
Right, yeah.
If you can believe that, it had no AC, not a single piece of cardio equipment, and not even a functioning bathroom or functioning washroom for up to the last 15 years of its business, and it's been open for a really long time. You know, and what could you as a business owner, as a consumer as well, because you are in the fitness lifestyle, what can you chalk that up to? Like, what is the cause for that?
I don't know. Some people, it's like old school mentality. Some people confuse hardcore with unhygienic equipment and equipment that isn't really serviced. When that's not the term hardcore at all. I think it's an old school hardcore mentality that hasn't really, kept up with the times. Yeah. So, like Dorian Yates's gym, that I've trained in many, many times. That was hardcore, sure, and it wasn't really that clean, but it was pretty clean. Mm-hmm. He did have working toilets there in the end. He didn't in the beginning there, like he had a urinal, but, not actual proper toilet. But then, you'll go to Metroflex there in Texas. Mm. Now that does have a toilet. It may not be, extremely hygienic on the floor because like dust in there, the doors are open and stuff like that. But Brian does, a pretty good job at keeping everything in order, making sure that the gym equipment works and all that sort of stuff. So I think some people just take that hardcore mentality out of context and, think that they don't have to have a toilet or equipment that has to be maintained.
Yeah, and I think they go on the opposite end of the spectrum because we see gyms now like a Lifetime Fitness where you literally have tailors inside the gym, you have your own restaurant inside the gym, you have salons inside the gym, you have dry cleaning servants that will press your work outfit for the day, and someone who will shine your work shoes before you leave the gym. Like they're two such opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to it. It's really hard to kind of keep your perspective in check when you see something like that, and then you see the exact opposite, like you said, like a dirty building with the most unhygienic situation and circumstances, and the owners will say, well, this is hardcore, and you as a consumer are probably like, no, this is not hardcore, this is just kind of dirty.
Yeah, they're two complete opposite ends of the spectrum, and you've got to have balance. And I think the best between the two, having a gym facility that polishes your shoes and tailors your clothes or whatever, I think that's too extreme in itself. We talk about this day and age and people and kids being what they call them, the pussified generation, I think is Clint Eastwood.
That's one way to say it. Yeah, that's definitely one way to say it.
I think if people babysat to that degree, and we're now training in gyms with exercise equipment that is made to make the exercise easier, so it can feed our egos when we're lifting the entire stack, but not really knowing that it's hard. It's a very light stack. I think it's the wrong message that we're sending through. Yes, it's convenience. Yes, it's a lunch line. Yes, it can get people through the door. But is it really based on results? Probably not.
Probably not. And I think that I've grown in the industry enough to know that if it was solely based on results, I think a lot of the places would be shut down before they even had a chance to get on their feet. Places like Orange Theory Fitness, places like Planet Fitness, places like Snap Fitness. It was based solely on results. Now, based on money, I mean, you could throw up a bunch of Planet Fitnesses, charge $10 a month, and serve free pizza and put out, anti-hardcore athlete ads all over, YouTube and all over TV, and you're going to get a bunch of people coming in and signing up solely out of an insecurity phase, and then they get into a place where not everyone kind of looks the same. So they're not really growing, they're not really adapting, and they're not really changing because everyone is the same, everyone looks the same. There might be one or two people there who are actually dead serious, but they're just overshadowed so much by people who are there to basically stroke themselves off and say, yeah, I work out. You know what I mean? Like it goes back to the ego boost. Like it does something for their ego so they feel like they've really accomplished something. When in reality, when it comes to people who take it very seriously, they're just kind of migrating with the herd, and they're not really going anywhere, and they're not really doing anything.
Yeah, like I can understand they're trying to get that short-term clientele, feed them pizza. Like you said, we're going to stroke their ego for a little while, but that's going to give the rest of us a bad name within the industry, whether you like it or not. Personal trainers are personal trainers. Just like you get good hairdressers and you get bad hairdressers. You're going to get gyms, you're going to get bad gyms. But unfortunately, it's quite easy for that person then to throw their hands up in the air and go, you know what, I tried the gym once, it didn't work for me. Yeah. So they're not going to bother again because why? They were fed pizza on a Friday.
Yeah, and to be most personal trainers, I think most of us are just kind of glorified hairdressers, with muscles and that lift. Because, we get a lot of the people who are there to... they're there to work out, but I think a lot of them are there just to talk or to give themselves something to do. But that's for a whole other story. So you mentioned balance earlier when we were talking about the spectrum, and you're a bit of an adrenaline junkie, given your background and how you just like to up and take off and whatnot. How does an adrenaline junkie find and achieve balance in their life?
It's a daily battle. I work at it. It's not something that I take lightly. Much like if I didn't work at it, I'd probably be quite a depressed person. So I work at it. I may not be as happy as someone else, but I can be 5% happier. Yes. So it's much like anything else. I just work at that balance. I have to really pull myself back and acknowledge the long-term goals as opposed to the short-term goals. So as an example, I've done a lot of, in bodybuilding, and now I don't compete in bodybuilding anymore. So I bust out these video series and these books and now supplements, but I need something else. So now I've figured my next challenge is to do an Ironman. I'm going to do an Ironman. However, I'm going to continue with my bodybuilder style physique and with my bodybuilder program, but now I've got somebody that's assisting me with that. And if he tells me to run 3 miles, I want to run 6. If he tells me 6, I want to run 9, because it's within my nature that I want that adrenaline. And if I can't get it through intensity, I'll have to get it through volume. So then I have to sit back and think, no, it's okay. You've got 3 or 4 more runs this week. Collectively, they'll add up to the 9 or 15 miles or whatever it may be. So I'm always having to pull myself back, or if I'm around others, I have to do so otherwise, because, I'm going to get injured. I'm not getting any younger. And the mind is still as willing and as intense and motivated as it was when I was a teenager. I have to acknowledge that I'm mortal, and I can't keep up with that kind of pace. So, I like to have adrenaline. I just try to feed it from various aspects, and collectively it'll give me my fix, and that will help balance me out. I'm with a girl now, which really balances me out as well. She isn't anything to do with the fitness industry, which is good for me. So our conversations give me a bit of an adrenaline fix, because she can sit me down and shut me up and tell me things I don't know.
Nice. So these are a couple of things that I definitely want to touch on. These are very interesting. These are very interesting points. So let's go on your daily work. I think everyone is searching for the answer, right? Everyone's searching for that one thing that's going to just completely fix all their problems. You are wise enough to know now that there's probably no such thing as a one thing, which is why we're talking about a balance. What kind of daily work are you doing to really keep yourself in check, not only on a mental level, there's also emotional, physical, spiritual, everything. What do you do to keep yourself in check?
I make a lot of goals every single day. So I always tell people I don't count reps, I make reps count. And now I'm starting with this Ironman journey, okay. I'm not counting meters, I'm making every meter count. No junk miles. And, so when I talk about long-term goals, well, for instance, I've got a timer on it's an app that I have on my phone. I don't even think what the app name is. Basically, it's a countdown. So, it's giving me, okay, I'm going to live until I'm 100 years old. So it's counting down. I look at it every single day. I've only got this amount of days left, this amount of minutes left or whatever. So I try to make them count. But at the same time, I've got a goal that I want to live to 100. 100 is I don't need to be any older, but 100 is what I do. So now I make little goals every single day. So I wake up in the morning, I get my apple cider vinegar, my turmeric, my ginger, my fermented glutamine, my greens, my magnesium, my black pepper. It tastes vile, but I know that's going to be good, and it keeps me sane, thinking, okay, I'm going to check off that, much like a prisoner in jail. He's scratching off those days, and I'm doing the same, but in an advanced way. I'm not counting them down, I'm counting up towards it. So that gives me a little bit of balance. But then, before I hit the gym, I'll make sure that I try to meditate. I try to lower my cortisol levels. Because I used to train with a lot of anger, and it worked. It worked really well. I would write a lot. I wrote several books, and I look back at them now, and I think, wow, there's a lot of anger there. Did I really like that? But I try to find that motivation in a different approach now to try to keep my cortisol levels down. And, I go to the extremes of even bathing in filtered water. I'm not saying that I use bottled water in my bath, but filtered shower heads. I drink filtered water. I make sure that I don't drink out of any, my containers are BPA free. I don't use a microwave. I try not to use the phone against my head. I try to eat organic whenever possible. I make sure that I supplements are free of heavy metal contaminants. So basically Prop 65 Act certified. I have my colonic hydrotherapy once a week, and I find that just, this is just a tip of the iceberg. Yeah. But doing all these things and, detoxing with glutathione really does help stabilize me mentally. Because if I look at, I've had brain fry scans, and I spent 6 weeks at one of the world's top clinics last year, and it cost me an arm and a leg, but it was fascinating on how we can really change the way that we think through not just, internal changes, but external lifestyle changes of things that we're not, really aware that we're being exposed to, such as, various acids and contaminants within cleaning products, within soaps, and obviously female with makeups. And just all of these collectively really do change people's perception. Like bipolar has gone through the roof. A lot of mental disorders now has gone through the roof. Cancer statistics have gone through the roof. Now, you're telling me that's just, by accident? No, we're actually promoting it. So, I fight against that. And I find that being preoccupied with a lot of these things, people go, God, you don't want to be occupied like that. It'll stress you out. I love it. It fascinates me. Apart from, my work, which is pretty much from the time that I wake up to the time I go to bed, I absolutely love doing this. It's fascinating. And, it's just like playing some vinyl for me on a Friday night. I just love it.
It sounds like the amount of stimulus that you have taking such a pride in really fortifying your body. It's almost like you are this omnipotent creator of yourself, and you're looking at every characteristic, or sorry, every aspect of your health as a whole, going to mental, physical, spiritual, from the biggest part, whether it's say the bathing in filtered water, down to the smallest cell in your body. You're constantly putting effort, and you take a certain amount of pride, because I can hear it in your voice. You take a certain amount of pride just paying such close attention to the fine little details that you know are setting yourself up for this better, greater goal way down the line. It's like you are literally planting seeds of reward at such a small level by hand, not using any machinery, being particular about what kind of water that you're using, what kind of food that you're gathering, what kind of soil that you're going to put it in, what place you're going to put it in, because you know all of this love and care is going to turn this one seed of reward into a bountiful tree of all sorts of fruit that are your quote-unquote rewards that are going to be down the line, whether they're achieving goals, achieving accomplishments, earning something, or whatever the goal may be. Is that pretty much safe to assume?
Yeah, not safe to assume. You hit the nail on the head there.
Good. And I want to touch some more on that, because that's not normal. That's fucking awesome, but that is not normal. People do not take such a dedicated eye to improving themselves, even on these small. It's like you're going microscopic. Most people barely even take time out of their day to write 10 affirmations that they want to see manifested into fruition. And you're literally, like, you are taking it down to almost to a scientific level. It's almost like the energy that you put in. And I say this because I've been watching a lot of, or I've been listening to a lot of old interviews with Nikola Tesla. The energy that you put in to the fortification of your body and the healing and the progression of your body is godlike, because of the omnipresence that you've given it, and the ability to kind of separate your own consciousness from your body and actually look like, okay, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. And there's so much stimulus that it empowers you. But it empowers you in a very progressive direction, not towards anything too far outside of you, because it's still grounded. And it's very, very, very reminiscent of an old interview that I heard with Nikola Tesla, and it's very godlike, as weird as that is to sound. But it's like you know that you are the creator of your own life, and you're literally looking at your own vessel, much like if God looked at us and said, this is how I'm going to do it, this is how, this is that, this is how this is going to get better, this is that.
Yeah, so, you correctly said that this is our vessel, and unfortunately, we have this lifeline, and people think that gives them the right to abuse this vessel. And they put so much out there with priority, including whether it be the protests, whether it be business, their meetings, other people, materialistic possession, and not prioritizing themselves, which I think is absolute insanity when people put themselves last, and then further from that, they abuse themselves. And I do this from a bodybuilder's perspective as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that both can't live together, but I think they should. Ever since I've started following this kind of progressive protocol, I eat so much less than I used to. However, I'm able to build so much more muscle and lose fat when I want to. I don't deal with the inflammation within my joints and my ligaments that I once did, and now I'm obviously older. And a lot of people will quickly say, oh, there's no science that backs that up. But, if I'm feeling so much better, if I'm getting so much better results than I had in the past, I've been training for close to 20 years now, and that's the science that I need. I don't need anyone else to tell me this, that, the other, or a lab or a bit of paper, even though I do take a lot of consideration with that. It's not my be all and end all. You know, as you said, it's progressive, much like a bodybuilding journey or any other business journey. Is not the destination. It's every single day. And if you're working upon that and being extremely present whilst you're doing it, because I believe in the law of attraction, and it makes me feel good to actually believe in that as well, then life is slowing down. You know, we were talking earlier about this is a very long winter. I absolutely love it that it has been a long winter, because I'm slowing things down. No longer am I going to talk to you and eat at the same time and then look back at my empty plate and think, wow, did I just eat that? I didn't even taste it. No, I'm going to take time now. And I'm going to enjoy this conversation and that meal that I just had, knowing that I have this opportunity, because I've lived in third world countries where I've seen people with no opportunity. However, we take what we have for granted, and we miss life. And, you know, you always hear, you know, your grandfather or elderly relative that's on their deathbed, and they always say, don't have any regrets, or I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd been more present. I wish I'd been happier. You know, plan on doing all of the above.
No, yeah, you really are. So now I'm even more interested. How did you become so self-aware, and what piqued your interest into this amount of self-knowledge that you've gathered in these multiple years of your life?
I'd say it was depression, to be honest with you. I fell into some depression some years ago, and I used that depression as my fuel. So I wrote a couple of books that I look back on. I'm kind of proud of how I kind of delved in and wrote those books. And it really, really helped with me physically, because I was training with a lot of anger. It helped me short term, you know, but I began to pay the price, and I didn't feel that, you know, I was getting any better from it. I was getting worse. I was, you know, getting niggling injuries. I wasn't enjoying the training as much as I had in the past. And now I felt that, you know, it was affecting people around me. So that I thought, okay, now I need, you know, because I was becoming a bit of a recluse as well. When I figured, okay, I'm going to move now back to Wales, be a little bit closer to people I know, my family, get grounded a little bit, and start researching things a little bit more, because I was getting supplements tested then as well, before I even had my own supplement company. And I was a bit pissed off that I was spending my hard-earned money on certain supplements that weren't delivering what they said they would. You know, some smaller companies I was getting tested were awesome, but then I was getting some larger companies tested, and it's full of absolute crap. And I don't want that in my body. So then once I started, you know, taking the supplements and testing supplements that I wanted to put in my body, then I started taking closer look at the types of fuel that I was putting in my body. Because, you know, we obviously just think as bodybuilders, okay, push this much weight, eat that many calories, I'm going to, regardless. Instead of looking at the forms and what works with our body, maybe our blood type, maybe foods that cause us particular types of inflammation. So, you know, if I was to have a food allergy test, I know exactly now which foods really bring up those markers. Now I remove myself of those foods. I'm no longer, you know, bloated. I'm no longer sluggish. I feel like I have a much better synthesis within me than I did before. And I feel cleaner because I detox myself all the time. So I'm able to now absorb the healing foods that's out there that are made for us. You know, we overcook foods generally. So we remove ourselves of all the nutrients in there that are built to heal us. So now doing so, I feel that, wow, I've got like a AA battery put in me every single day. And, you know, just it kind of had a snowball effect from there, where I just continue to expand upon it and research. And, you know, I always say I test and never guess. So I tested, and I feel like, okay, that's that will work for me. I will bring that on and add that to my plate, so to speak. You know, much like you read a book and you think, yeah, none of that's relevant to me except the last page. So I'll keep the last page and apply that to my life.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole point. And when someone talks about self-knowledge, and one of my childhood heroes, I'm pretty sure everyone's childhood hero growing up was Bruce Lee, and he would always talk about how ultimate knowledge is self-knowledge, and this is true. It's knowledge of oneself, but knowledge of what's relevant to oneself is also important. You could read. Grant Cardone always said, "I buy a $20 book for $1 million idea. I'll read 300, 400 pages. 2 pages I'll keep. 2 pages I'll read over and over and over and over and over again, because that's where my $1 million idea is." And I think it could be the way that we as children were brought up. It could be the way that our families looked at it, how our families worked. Not everyone thinks, all right, I'm going to read this book. I'm going to look for what sticks out to me. What's already implanted in me, I'm already looking for what sticks out to me and how it can benefit me. Most people will think, oh, I got to read this whole book. It's 400, 500, or 200 pages long. It's going to be boring. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. And it's almost like you're just kind of on autopilot. Like you're mindlessly wandering through the book and you're not picking up anything because you don't even know what you're looking for. Whereas it sounds as if you get a book and you know exactly what you're looking for because you know yourself so well. You know key topics to pick up, and you know what to take and what to throw away, what to disregard as far as information goes.
Yeah, it has to be something that actually activates your brain as well, isn't it? You could have two particular experts on a particular subject, but you're going to obviously relate to the one that speaks to you and absorb that more. And I'm the kind of person that gets easily distracted as well still, so I try to read like 4 different books at the same time that are completely opposing spectrums to each other, so then I can kind of cross-reference back and forth. And it's like with my work, and I travel, I move a lot because I get unsettled quite easy. So I have to distract myself to a certain degree in a good way, because I do say every now and again, I don't like to think too much because it makes me think too much. So I try to be distracted with my thoughts.
So yeah, and if you don't, and it goes down to keeping yourself in check. If you don't keep yourself in check, then you're running off one thought, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're thought hopping, and then you can't find out where you got to the beginning. But this is really interesting. Now, the model for success is different for everybody, and everyone has, I would say, a slight obsession when it comes to being truly successful, not only in business, finances, but also with yourself and your family, et cetera, et cetera. And you have a very profound obsession with self-knowledge, self-care, and self-respect. And that's one thing a lot of us don't have, is that self-respect. Is that self-respect enough to put in the extra effort into what you're doing, what you're eating, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and be willing to sacrifice a little bit for the betterment of your future, of your body, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which we will definitely touch on a lot more. One thing I am curious about, you mentioned your girlfriend is not involved in the fitness industry at all, correct?
Well, no. She, when I met her just over a year ago, she'd never didn't know anything about bodybuilding or a bodybuilder. She thought I was kind of some meathead with a mohawk and tattoos. Yeah. So it took a while to get some conversations happening. And then, I had a lot of photo shoots down at the Olympia this year. Mm-hmm. So she came down, and so she really jumped in at the deep end by experiencing the Olympia weekend, and she accepted it, the diet. Because I had to diet down for these shoots, obviously, that was a little bit difficult for her to understand, because I am very meticulous with my meal timings, being in bed by a certain time. I can't stay at her place because all my supplements are here. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. But you mentioned how it was, you liked the fact that she wasn't that involved. And usually when it comes down to this, it's so consuming. You know what I mean? This lifestyle, this bodybuilding lifestyle, even though you don't compete, just being in and active in that lifestyle, it's so consuming. You mentioned that you kind of liked that she wasn't. Why would you like the fact that your girlfriend was not into that or not that heavily involved in it?
Well, it's not that there's anything wrong with this. It's just my personal standpoint is that I absolutely detest the vanity aspect of our industry.
Yes.
Social works show you that. Like, I'll have a feed and I'll have like 10 people come up on my feed with the same pose, same selfie, holding their hair, and I'm like, enough. You know, I need a little bit more than that. And to me, training has always been therapeutic. I will start freaking out if I don't train, not because I don't care so much about the front caps of my delts. It's more so I want to feel good. I want to feel that I've got energy. I want to get my AA batteries, and I want to be more productive in that day. So now if I'm with somebody who isn't saying, hey, check out my abs today, do they look better than they did yesterday, or they're worse? And being a little bit paranoid if they eat a little bit more than a sweet potato with their salad, So that was a breath of fresh air, and she has completely different interests. However, she has decided to join me with this journey of doing an Ironman this year, which is very different to what she's ever done in the past. Because she read a story on this woman called Truia Pitts, I think her name was, and she had actually got burnt, like severely burnt, whilst competing in a triathlon in Australia because of a bushfire. Now, this woman has continued to do triathlons, and she happened to read her story when I was working in Australia just a couple of months ago, and she said, you know what, I have no excuse. If this woman can do it, I feel really ashamed that I can't do something like this, so I'm going to do this too. So, we do have now a common interest of that. We're kind of cycling together. We're running, swimming together, but that's pretty much as far as it goes.
Nice. So, the vanity of this particular field. Now, I'm obviously not a bodybuilder. I find more interest in strength sports, whether it's powerlifting or strongman. But I do understand where you're coming from, because we at the company, we sponsor a lot of bodybuilders, and we as individuals, if we're in any way, shape, or form involved in the industry, it turns into pure vanity. The majority of it is all about pure vanity, which is obviously heavily tied to ego, and ego is very self-sabotaging. However, if you're so in it, and now you being the former competitor and the supplement owner, like, this is you. How do you not lose your head knowing that, every time you go through your feeds, it's this. I mean, are you really good at just repelling all of that, or does it eventually just take its toll on you?
It did take its toll on me, like I said, when I had some dark days some years ago. But now I kind of brush it off. Obviously, being where I am sometimes the center of attack and haters. And now, I don't care. It doesn't bother. I know what's best for me. But I just get concerned where there's a lot of people that have, emotional problems and, physical problems within this industry, and a lot of insecurity. I'd say there's more insecurities within the fitness industry than somebody that sits down and has a Happy Meal at McDonald's,
I would actually agree with that. For when you just said that, I thought about it, and you're absolutely right. There are more people in the industry who have more insecurity about their image than those who are not in the industry, who blatantly know that by eating McDonald's they're destroying their body, but they don't give a shit, and they're like, oh, I don't care because I'm hungry and this is what I want. But they can do it, and they won't even think twice. Even doing it in public, they don't even think twice. And in the vanity of the bodybuilding industry, it's almost like it slowly rolls into this insecure wave, and every time this wave grows and grows and grows, we need more and more and more pseudo reassurance or pseudo gratification, whether it's from likes or comments or follows or status updates or whatever. And it slowly, I believe slowly it can turn into a very serious long-term issue, especially when the bodybuilding days are over and that person's not the same as they were when they were in shape. What is your take on that?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you saw the Dorian Yates documentary that was just released on London Real, and he said the same thing. It took him a long time to find himself after being a 300-pound bodybuilder. Now he's retired. Mm-hmm. What does he do? Does he continue to try to stay big even though he's not bodybuilding competitively anymore? Well, no, you don't. It took him time to find himself. And, that's the problem that we have today, obviously. But going back to the people who actually consider themselves number one on the pecking order of vanity projects, that's where their health really comes into question. They may look good on the outside because they're training their asses off and they're hitting their cardio sessions. But there's a lot of, disorder eating specifically for men within this industry, but they're not going to talk about it because of pride and ego and stuff like that. There's some great forums that I found on bodybuilding.com that actually really talk upon it, because there's a lot of people in there communicating because they want to seek help. And that's why I kind of just detest the just complete vanity of it on the social networks.
It's not so much that these people are vain or they have massive egos because their bodies look amazing. It's because there's a underlying issue, the big pink elephant in the room that nobody is talking about until basically it's too late. And these people, these younger people, or the people who are just getting into it, have no idea what some of these people had to do to look like that, and then it just turns into this body dysmorphia issue, or it turns into an even higher insecurity of what they feel they look like, and then it just spirals downward into just a plethora of mental issues that, if you don't put a lid on that, then it's almost like what's the point of no return? You know what I mean? Like, how quickly are we going to hit that?
Yeah, and I think, with the social networks, there's a lot of pressure on people to look a certain way. Now, these people, they may not be photoshopped because they look absolutely amazing, and people will get hung up on that. So, like if I'm at an expo, for instance, I could look at Steve Cook. Of course, he's a great-looking guy. He's tall, he's blonde, tanned, and he'll have a huge line at his at a booth, and a lot of them are female. Now, I'm not going to get a line that big, and they're certainly not female in my line, and I'm never going to be as tall and handsome as Steve, but I don't get hung up on it. That's not important to me. It's important to other people, because I'm important to me, and Steve's important to Steve. But a lot of people will compare themselves, and it becomes like, sorry to excuse my French, but it's a dick measuring contest, between the males and the females. And it can lead to a lot of health implications, and not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And I hate to see people go through that. Like, I know of of a girl who's, a mother, and, she'd like sit in her car with a kid in the back and take 60 selfies until she got the right one before she posted it. And she'd have like butt pads in her leggings, and she had a great butt. She had a fantastic butt. But yet she would do this, and I just think it's sad, and more should be placed within the issues and the implications of the health aspect of it and the emotional aspect, as opposed to the vanity project.
No, I agree, and you know what? When you talk about that, a lot of people don't really talk on the health part of it. It's more so it's the look. How do you look so good? How are you so ripped? How are you this? How are you that? And I believe half the time they're telling the truth about what they really do, and half the time they're not. Because nobody, the steroids thing and the steroids notion, no one is still openly and freely admitting it. I don't think anyone ever really openly and freely admitted it to that level until Rich Piana did it after he left with mutant supplements, because everyone pretty much knew Rich Piana was on something, and he just came out and finally said, yeah, I'm on supplements. Most bodybuilders are. That's how we look the way that we look. That's why we're so strong and so jacked and so cut, because we're on steroids. And yeah, we take supplements, but we wouldn't be where we are without steroids. And that's half of it. And the other half, like you said, is the Photoshop. A lot of people can't even tell what's real and what's been Photoshopped unless you have a really good eye and you can see something in the photo that doesn't look quite right. Now, between the supplements that people may or may not want to admit that they're taking and the Photoshop that they may or may not admit that they're using, how do we, those who are not in this industry, who are not actively competing in this industry, how do we know what's real?
Yeah, that's true. And the basis is that you can't other people because, so many people would look upon Mike O'Hearn. So Mike O'Hearn was one of the first guys that I remember when I was working in a wood furniture warehouse in Wales, trying to force down another dry potato and another tin of tuna, trying to put on size. And I remember looking at Mike O'Hearn thinking, wow, Venice Beach, the beautiful women, the palm trees in the background. And, throughout my, because I remember reading that he'd won the natural universe. He'd also won the natural powerlifting titles. And I thought, wow, that can be attained. Now, a lot of people will shoot that down and say it's impossible that he could be natural. But I still believe that. I honestly believe, truthfully, that he's natural. I've trained with the guy. I saw him train many, many years for many mornings when I worked when I trained in Gold's in Venice. The guy is an absolute monster. He's a freak. So why couldn't that be a possibility? And when I think about that, I think that opens my own opportunities. Because if I was to kind of be disgruntled and shoot that down, then all of a sudden my ceiling's gonna become very short as well. So instead of focusing on the negativities of people, just look upon your own opportunities and use them as kind of measuring stick to what you could reach yourself.
And do you think that people focus so much on, take Mike O'Hearn, for example, because he's been accused of being on steroids I don't know how many times. Do you think people just focus on that because that's just their get out of jail for free card? Like, oh, well, I can look like that if I was on steroids like Mike O'Hearn, but I don't take steroids. This is why I look the way that I look. When in reality, based on what you're saying and you actually working out and training with the guy and seeing the guy train, you would prefer to say, no, it doesn't matter whether if he's on or not. I don't even think he is. He just actually works his ass off. He literally trains for however many hours a day. And so if I want to look like that, if I want to look close to that, I got to do the same thing. I'm not going to use, he's just on steroids as an excuse. Because number one, it's bullshit. Because you can't just take steroids and look like Mike O'Hearn. And number two, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it is or not, whether it is true or whether it's not true. No one's ever going to know unless he actually comes out and admits, yes, okay, I was on steroids, if that's even the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And people do focus on their own insecurities and they try to justify their complacency by pointing a stick at other people, regardless of if they're on or not or whatever. It's like I just posted over the past couple of days lots of transformation images because my 8-week hardcore video trainer came to an end for those who just started on the very first day. And already, there's people said, hey, he's obviously on steroids. He's on clenbuterol. I don't know how these people can tell that. Yeah. And, that's photoshopped. That's a filter. And that has been happening. Now, I've been a witness to that for the past 16, 17 years. Yeah. It just happens. It's just the nature of the beast. But I always say there's two people that will actually end up living in a mansion. And those two people could be walking down a road and go, wow, look at that beautiful mansion on the top of the hill there. One day I'm going to work really hard every single day of my life to get that house. And the other person will go, lucky bastard, I bet he won the lottery. And guess which one is going to end up with that house? Not the latter.
Yeah. No, that was a very very painfully accurate analogy, but it's very true. And it comes down to what we're searching for. And I think this also comes down to self-knowledge, self-actualization, and what you yourself on a very subconscious level are seeking. If you're seeking the way to achieve, then you would say, oh, you know what, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to have this mansion, or I'm going to have a mansion even better than this. If you're seeking a way to repress or if you're seeking a way to what's the word that I'm looking for? If you're basically seeking a way to justify your shortcomings or just justify your insecurities, you would say, oh, he just won the lottery, that lucky prick, blah 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 blah, and you end up in the exact same spot. Now, I know we only have you for a short amount of time, but I want to ask you, when it comes to fine-tuning yourself, whether you're looking for if you're looking for the progress or if you're looking just for the excuses, how does one retune themselves to eliminate this subconscious filter for looking for reasons why they're not where they are and exchange that for reasons why they will be where they want to be?
Wow, good question. For me, it's just taken time. And I've had to go to some dark places in order to find that. Like when I was here as the editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com, I had to leave the country basically with a week's notice because my lawyer then had not extended for my visa extension. So I had to leave the country. Ooh. And, I had to leave my house. I had 2 rental properties, my pets, my friends, everything. I had to leave it here, hoping that I'd be back within maybe a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. A year later, that hadn't happened. I had to foreclose on my properties, had to lose everything, had to give away my pets. Jeez. And, at times like this, you go through a lot of soul searching and think, God, wow, I had my dream over there now. And now I'm back in Wales, back where I started like 15, 16 years ago, Mm-hmm. And, you do a lot of things, after, during that time, you can blame people, you can, be controlled by your environment, or you can then control it. And when you start actually figuring out the grasp of control, then I think you can get a better grasp on your life and what's most important. And as I said, I've been in the lucky position of having to live in third world countries. So perception has completely changed because of that. At one point I would look at, a dry chicken breast and rice and think, oh God, I got to eat that again for the 5th time today or whatever. Mm-hmm. But now I think, wow, I know I'm going to have a meal in front of me within the next couple of hours. Yep. I'm extremely lucky because there's some poor people that have no idea where that meal is and what it's going to be made up of, and they will never see the inside of a gym ever. So I feel that I'm extremely lucky with what I have. So now I can see the world around me in a much different light. I actually acknowledge people in the streets and smile at them, where before I'd probably have my eyes pierced to the ground and my fists clenched, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it takes time, It may not be something that you need to purposely look out for, but I just say it'll come to you if you really do believe in the law of attraction. You invite positivity in your world. Surround yourself with people with positive influence, and eventually that universe will talk to you back.
So basically, if we are to rewire and retune ourselves to be a little bit more open to what we truly want and what we truly desire, and not repressive of it, we basically need a lot more life experiences outside of our current perspective.
Sure. Like for instance, we talk about the political climate here. I don't watch the news or I don't read newspapers, but based on what I've heard, okay, there may be some negativity coming in that political climate, but a lot of the protests that are backfiring at it comes from a negative aspect as well, I believe. And I think it should come from a more positive aspect. I don't want to get caught up in that, but if people had focused within their communities and their streets as well, as collectively coming together and protest, then I think they'd get a lot more progress from what they're trying to attain if they just looked to their immediate community and cleaned up their street, for instance.
Yeah. If they really put a lot of effort, as much effort as they do protesting and complaining and bitching, if they put that much effort into themselves and improving themselves at a grassroots level where they can actually build off of that, then you would see a change that was actually worth noting, worth
exactly.
paying attention to.
We learn, just as when we were kids, we learn from observation. And if we see people doing a certain thing a certain way, then chances are we're going to be influenced by that and do the same. And holding up signs and jumping up and down, I don't mean to sound condescending when I say that. I'm not. Yeah. But, I just don't see a positive outcome from that if that's the only route forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, this is, like I said, this is a very serious thing that people need to talk about. People need to hear. People need to get comfortable with thoughts and feelings like this, because I feel that nowadays, because of the rise in being politically correct, nobody wants to ruffle any feathers anymore. So I love to promote a little bit of positive controversy and ruffle a little feathers and really get people feeling and not just mindlessly autopiloting through their day. If I can break that and actually have them feel an emotion, whether they're pissed, angry, happy, sad, confused, or whatever, it gets the brain firing off, and it gets you actually thinking like you were supposed to be doing, this whole time. You know what I mean?
Exactly. We're not just physical beings from the neck down. We need activity from the neck up.
Exactly.
That's what's interesting. And that's what's going to get the body to follow at the end of the day. So I applaud you for doing that, because it's very easy for everybody just to go on, their normal protocol. It's their 9 to 5. Let's come home, watch the goggle box, let's watch the TV, go to bed, maybe we'll reproduce and go again, and there's a lot more to it. If we can be the one that kind of positively slaps them around the face, then it gives us purpose, and it makes us feel good that we're doing something to take up residence on this earth and actually earn it.
Exactly. Contributing something, getting something and leaving something, which is something I used to say when I lived in Canada. If I get something, I give something twofold, no matter what. And especially if anybody is in a position where you can help, give them twice. And if they decide to give back, take once, give twice, type of thing. Always put out more than what you're getting. That way, we're always progressing in a positive direction.
Exactly. I learned that from Ryan DeLuca at bodybuilding.com when he was a CEO there. He was a consumer and still is a consumer, and he'd always say, he'd never talk about money there at all. He'd always be talking about, how do I give the consumer more value than what they are actually paying for? So then that's how I started my supplement line. I thought, okay, how can I have the best ingredients and more value to the consumer than what they're actually paying for? But then I actually started thinking like that with pretty much every aspect of my life. And wow, my relationships have got so much better, with interaction with family and with myself.
No, and it does. You know what? Because nowadays it's so common to take, and it's not very common to give. And I feel that no matter what you do, no matter what you're doing, if you just break the norm, break the mold of the norm, whatever is going on in the world, do the exact opposite. Or if you're going in a decent direction, or you feel this is going in a decent direction, take it up a notch. Do more. Do twice as much. Like, you don't have to go overboard. And if you're in a position of business where you're telling your consumers, like, hey, I'm going to give you a lot more than what you're going to be giving me, and actually follow through with it, it makes huge waves. I mean, most actions of energy are like teardrops in a lake. This one is actually causing waves, and it all comes back to you. It all comes back to you twofold. This all goes back down to the law of attraction. Everything that you're giving out, you're going to get back in. So you might as well give out 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 times what you're getting back. Because one way or another, it will end up coming back to you in a different form or fashion at a different time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. If I look back to how I used to be, when I would train, I'd train, as I said, with a lot of aggression. And, I'd have my headphones on, my eyes pierced to the floor, and I'd be within myself during that time. I remember working my way up to 7 plates in a squat that would take probably an hour. And then when I finished my session, I'd turn around and, I noticed that people are looking, but I don't know where I was for that hour, and there's no way that I'd be able to acknowledge any conversation. Now, if someone comes up to me into the gym, I'm more than happy to actually talk to somebody and take time between my sets. When it used to be like that, because I didn't think I'd be able to get my results any other way. And now that definitely does return itself upon me, where I don't feel the stress, I don't feel the anxiety, I don't feel the paranoia. I feel very open about it, and I feel much, much better, because I've never been one that's really good up close. Like, I am absolutely honored to be in this position, to do my video series, to be asked to an expo, but I've never really been good up close when people were to come up or give you accolade or pat you on the back. That doesn't sit well with me. So, you know, I like to, I'm an output guy. I like to put out my stuff, and I like to see the transformations that I witnessed from that at a distance, but a lot more comfortable than what I was several years ago, with actually being a little bit more up close and providing a little bit more than just a one-way street.
Exactly. But you know, everything unfolds as it's supposed to, because this is the way this all brought you to a particular point. And if it's all brought you here, everything that you're doing now is going to take you to an entirely different level. Whether you are going to live to be 100 years old, or you are going to see a change that you can actually take pride in and say, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm the cause of that. But regardless of it, I'm happy to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never thought I'd see the light of day of me actually wearing spandex leggings, but now as I'm starting to cycle and run, I guess that's a reality.
Yeah, you can't say never. That's another thing I learned from my whole Canadian experience, is you can never say never, because every time you say never, life always comes around and say, "Oh, really?" And then you find yourself eating those words.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you know, Kris had a hell of a lot more to say, and does have a hell of a lot more to say. And you know, based on this interview alone, that we are definitely going to be having Kris come back on the show. In fact, part 2 of Kris Gethin is next week. So if you like this episode, drop us a like, drop us a comment, share it, why not? And stay tuned for Kris Gethin part 2. Until the next time, my name is Sean Burton, but you can call me Sturdy. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, because you do not want to miss who we have next on the show. Can you think of a friend who could benefit from this show, or who would like it? If so, shoot them a message right now and tell them to subscribe to the Swole Podcast.